The air inside the royal chamber shimmered like a dream. Pillars made of blue crystal reflected the soft glow of twin suns outside. The room smelled faintly of flowers that grew only on the alien world of Elrune. Guards in silver uniforms stood in perfect silence as the young princess entered. She was 19, proud, and born into a world that believed its empire would last forever. Her people called themselves the Enlightened Ones, and they saw humans as nothing more than primitive guests allowed to walk among them. The human soldier stood at the center of the hall. His name was Daniel, a simple soldier from Earth who had come as part of a peace mission after the long galactic war. He wore heavy armor that shimmered faintly, more a symbol of duty than a tool of war. The metal reflected the golden lights above as he stood tall, silent, and calm. He was there to represent his kind in front of the royal court, but he didn't expect the meeting to turn into an insult. The princess looked at him with half a smile. Her voice was soft but sharp enough to cut through the quiet air. "So this is the mighty human soldier," she said. "The species that claims to have survived the storms of space with nothing but metal and pride." Daniel didn't answer. His translator implant picked up her words instantly. He had been warned before the meeting that the princess liked to test her guests. Still, hearing the mocking tone made something stir in his chest. She walked closer, the long silver fabric of her gown flowing like water. "Tell me, soldier, is it true that humans once feared the dark? That your ancestors hid from storms and lightning, trembling like small animals?" Her eyes shone with amusement as the court chuckled behind her. Daniel kept his gaze steady. "Yes," he said simply. "It's true." The answer caught her off guard. She blinked, then tilted her head. "You admit it? You admit that your kind was weak?" He looked around the room at the tall alien guards and the glittering walls. "We were afraid," he said. "But fear teaches. Lightning burned our trees, so we learned to make fire. Storms destroyed our homes, so we built stronger ones. Darkness scared us, so we made light." The hall fell silent. The princess frowned, then smiled again. "Charming words," she said, her tone almost kind now. "But words are easy. You humans talk much about survival, but here in the great halls of Elrune, survival is not enough. Power, wisdom, beauty, these are what matter." Daniel nodded slowly. "Maybe so. But when everything you love is gone, survival is all that matters. It's the seed from which everything else grows." Her smile faded slightly. She didn't like being challenged, especially by a human. "You think too highly of your kind," she said. "Your people rely on machines for everything. Without your armor, without your weapons, you're nothing." He looked down at his suit, then back at her. For a long moment he said nothing. Then slowly and deliberately he began to unseal his armor. The sound of the magnetic locks releasing echoed through the chamber. The aliens shifted in confusion. The human guards at the door tensed, unsure if they should stop him. Piece by piece, Daniel removed his armor. The chest plate came off first, then the gauntlets, then the helmet. He placed them all carefully on the marble floor. When he stood up again, he was just a man, tall, lean, wearing the simple gray undersuit of his unit. There was nothing special about him now. No weapons, no protection, no technology. He looked at the princess again. "Now I'm nothing," he said quietly. "Just a human, as you said." The princess stared at him. For the first time, she didn't know what to say. No one had ever dared to do something like that in front of her. Daniel took a step forward, his voice calm and even. "You think our strength comes from machines, but our machines come from our strength. Every tool we build, every ship we fly, every armor we wear, it all comes from one thing inside us. The will to keep going." He looked up at the shining banners above, symbols of the Elrune Empire. "You were born into power," he said. "You don't know what it means to fight for a sunrise. We had to earn everything we have, our homes, our food, our sky." The princess's hand tightened on her golden staff. The guards looked at each other, uncertain. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Yet there was something in the man's voice that made even the proud alien soldiers hesitate before taking a step forward. Daniel turned and looked toward the open doors of the hall. Beyond them, the light of the twin suns poured in, warm and golden. "You wanted to see a human without armor," he said. "Now you have." He began to walk away. His boots echoed softly against the marble floor. He didn't look back. The princess's voice trembled slightly when she spoke again. "Stop." He paused but didn't turn around. "You dare walk away from me?" she said. Her voice carried the weight of her throne, her title, her empire. He looked over his shoulder. You wanted to see what makes humans different, he said. It's not the armor. It's that we can walk away from anything that tries to own us. The chamber fell silent again. The princess stood frozen, her eyes wide. Something inside her shifted, a small crack in the wall of arrogance that had surrounded her since birth. As Daniel reached the door, one of the alien advisors whispered to her, "Should I stop him, my princess?" She didn't answer. She was still staring at the armor lying on the floor, reflecting the light of her twin suns. The metal looked so empty without the man inside it, yet somehow it seemed heavier than before. Outside the hall, Daniel stepped into the open courtyard. Alien birds flew across the sky, leaving trails of light in the air. He took a deep breath. The wind of Elrune smelled different from Earth's, sweet, metallic, and clean, but still, it reminded him of home. He walked past the fountains and statues of the alien gods, past the soldiers who watched him with wide eyes. Some whispered softly to each other. None dared to stop him. He had no armor now, no weapon, yet he walked with the quiet strength of someone who no longer needed either. Back inside the hall, the princess stood in silence long after he had gone. Her advisors began to speak, trying to pull her attention back to the ceremony. But she didn't listen. Her eyes were on the armor. She stepped forward slowly and knelt beside it. Her reflection looked back at her from the curved metal surface. Young, proud, uncertain. She touched the edge of the helmet. It was warm, still holding the heat from the man who had worn it. In that moment she realized something she had never understood before. Power wasn't in the metal. It wasn't in the throne or the crown. It was in the heart that refused to break. That night the princess went to her private balcony. The stars above were endless, stretching across the black sky like a river of silver fire. She thought about the human soldier, how calm he had been, how his voice had carried no anger, only truth. Her teacher once told her that humans were dangerous because they were unpredictable. They could be kind and cruel, brave and foolish, gentle and fierce, all at once. But now she saw it differently. Humans were dangerous because they could lose everything and still keep going. Days passed. The royal court moved on. New guests arrived, new discussions began. But the story of the human soldier spread through the palace like wind. Servants whispered about it in the kitchens. Guards talked about it in the barracks. Some laughed, saying he was foolish to remove his armor. Others said it was the bravest thing they had ever seen. The princess didn't speak of it, but she thought about it every day. She began to notice things she hadn't before. The tired eyes of her servants, the quiet way her people obeyed without question, the silence that hung over the empire like a shadow. One morning, she ordered that Daniel's armor be brought to her chamber. When it arrived, she placed it near her window where the sunlight touched it. Sometimes she would stand beside it and imagine the sound of his calm voice. "You wanted to see a human without armor. Now you have," the words echoed in her mind. She wondered if she would ever have the courage to take off her own kind of armor. The pride, the fear, the walls built by her crown. Weeks later, she made a decision that shocked her advisors. She announced that she would visit Earth herself to see how humans lived. When they protested, she said quietly, "If they can walk among us unafraid, then I can walk among them." And so she did. When her ship landed on Earth, she was greeted not by soldiers, but by children playing in the dust, by workers building machines, by people laughing under a single sun. She saw beauty not in perfection, but in struggle. She saw people who failed and tried again, who cried and smiled in the same breath. It was then she understood why the human soldier had walked away. He didn't do it to prove she was wrong. He did it to show her what freedom looked like. Months later, when she returned to Elrune, the people noticed a change in her. Her voice was gentler. Her eyes carried warmth. She began to question old laws and rebuild broken ones. She told her council, "Strength is not in what we hold, but in what we let go." Years passed, and the legend of the human soldier became part of the songs sung by travelers. Some said he returned to Earth and lived quietly among the stars. Others believed he still wandered the galaxy, teaching silent lessons without words. As for the princess, she ruled with wisdom far beyond her years. On quiet nights, she would stand on her balcony, look at the stars and whisper softly, "Thank you, Daniel." And somewhere, light years away under a different sky, a man without armor looked up at the same stars and smiled, because sometimes the greatest victories are won not by fighting, but by walking away.